Hello and welcome to Guess Who's Talking. Joining us this evening is a man whose voice has been part of our lives for over 50 years. As a priest, a writer and a broadcaster, he's shared reflections that have made us think, brought us comfort and have often made us smile. Well, away from his work, he's a big GAA football fan, a real music lover, and he's someone whose warmth and wit always shines through. It's a pleasure to welcome Father Brian Darcy.
Thank you, Linda. My pleasure to be here.
Oh, well, it's great to have you. Do you know, I'm thinking like a studio is, you're no stranger to a television studio, radio studio, you know, behind a microphone. Which comes more naturally to you? Where do you feel more relaxed?
I'm more relaxed on radio, actually. I was more relaxed on radio because it's just you and your audience with the radio. You have to be very careful in a television studio that you're not making life too difficult for those on cameras and other sort of things. So you're more conscious that there's more people around. Whereas a radio, it's a phone call between you and a single listener. Yeah. Even though there might be, it was Terry Wogan, 8 or 10 million of those listeners, but there's still they're still listening as one.
I was thinking about the priesthood as well. You know, you've been a priest for how many years now?
56 years.
56 years, but a lot of that has been spent in a TV studio. You know, you mix those two very well.
Yeah, it has been, but the priesthood is the first one. You know, even when you're in writing for the Sunday World or talking to UTV or talking to you the day or BBC, you're still you might be called Brian Darcy, but people recognise you as a voice of something spiritual. You can't sort of go off on a law. Even in the music that I choose, you almost always know that there is a message in the music somewhere. The message of it's trying to make life easier for people, trying to give a meaning to people's lives, trying to be where people are. You're just doing that naturally, and the best way of doing it is the easy way, by doing it in a studio with the people.
Well, in that studio, of course, we will know you from Thought for the Day, Pause for Thought. You know, that little pause in the morning that we kind of stop and listen to, and it sets us up for the day. Do you ever think about the impact that your words have on people?
No, I don't actually, but it comes back to bite you every now and again. For example, when 2FM and RTE in Dublin set up in 1979, 30th of May 1979, I was on that news station that very first day, and I worked for 15 years with them. And one of the things I did was every morning I got up at 6 o'clock, drove out to RTE studios, read the newspapers and wrote a reflection, which was broadcast live at 7:15 and repeated at 8:15.
So you wrote it that morning?
That morning. That was what you had to do. That's why I was doing it. I was able to do it that way. So he wrote a little chatty piece with, and Ronan Collins or Marty Whelan were the two people that I worked most with on that. And because of that, then when I finished there and came up to living in Enniskillen, BBC immediately, instantly grabbed me and asked me would I do the same thing on Radio 2 for London. And Derek Jemison was the first one I was working with. Now those are names you would remember, but probably not many other people. And Derek Jemison, we went into Derek Jemison, you go into the studio with him, and Derek was one of these over-pompous fellas. And as I often said, every time you mentioned God, Derek Jemison thought you were talking about him. And then I had Brian Hayes and Sarah Kennedy, and eventually Terry Wogan.
Yeah. The wonderful Terry Wogan. You had a great relationship with him,
18 years with Terry Wogan, 9 years with Chris Evans, and Sarah, all of the others as well. They have all been lovely, I have to say. They've all been really, you didn't feel you were an imposition in the programme. See, that's the difference. Some people you can go in and do a programme and you feel that they're just tolerating you being there. Whereas with Terry and Chris, I was worried about Chris because I wasn't sure what he'd look like. So Chris instantly took to the PFT, Pause for Thought, in his programme, because he began to get interested in life And he always realised that the pause for thoughters were actually talking about real life. And I became great friends with Chris as well.
Yeah, he's quite spiritual
He's
in his
terribly
own way,
spiritual,
isn't he? Yeah.
and he's a great reader of books. And he would always say, "Where'd you get that? What's that book? What do I need to read with that?" And he really developed as a human being, and in a spiritual and psychological too, as well. And he was interested in perfecting himself as well as that, because he now was married and had 2 children, and the whole thing was a whole different thing to him. And he was a very powerful guy. He's a flash in your life, because he's so the energy that he has. Yeah. And he used to run a big car. He's a big Ferrari fan. And down in his house he had a number of Ferraris in heat-controlled stables. They're all about 13 million or 14 million each. Wow. These Ferraris. And he used to bring them out for children in need. And they went round the country, and he used to ask me to go down round the country wherever these Ferraris were, doing at this stage, and do a pause for thought sitting on top of a Ferrari. Which is a little bit different,
It is different.
You gotta use your head there. You can't be sort of, no, I'm being very political now. No. You just can't. You have to be in the roaring Ferraris behind you, and you have to just work your way into it. And that's part of it too. Wherever people are, you make yourself part of where people are, and you talk in their language insofar as you can. And if you don't know the language, say you don't know it and learn it.
Chris Evans obviously still broadcasting on Virgin Radio,
Yes.
still going. Sadly, we've lost the great Terry Wogan. But did you find, with him, the Irish
upset.
thing, was there a real connection there with him?
There was. He was still, even to his dying day, totally interested in what is happening in Dublin and RTE, and all the friends that he used to have, Gay and Mike Murphy, and all the fellas that he used to work with. And he was always very interested in that. And he hadn't been able to. I was the kind of the link between them, because I was still working with Mike and Gay and RTE and going over to him then. It was, I was very lucky in that I was really good friends with some of the best broadcasters that anyone ever produced, never mind Ireland. I mean, Gay Byrne was the master. If you ever want to know how to read a script, listen to Gay Byrne. The other one that I would listen to, how to read a script, and it's really important how to read a script as if you're thinking of it for the first time. Alistair Cook. I don't know if you remember
Letter from
Cook.
America.
Letter from America.
And
Gay and myself used to always talk about him, because Gay modelled himself on him.
Really?
On Alistair Cook, and he just had this wonderful way of reading a script as if he was just thinking of it, but he actually had worked on it very hard to be able to read it in that way. And so I was very lucky that I knew all these people and learned from them, not just by listening to them, but actually mostly being friends with them and knowing what they were. I mean, to watch Gay Byrne was the exact opposite of watching Terry Wogan. Gay came into a studio maybe 2 hours beforehand. He went through every comma of a script beforehand, and then read it as if he was just after thinking about it. Let me tell you about this. And that's the way he would do it. Terry wandered in. I used to stay with Terry occasionally when I was on the programme, and we'd be driven into the studio, and Terry would go in and he'd say to Alan or Paul, "What have we got today, my dear friends? Make sure there's emails working, so that'll keep us going." And then he would talk about it. But he was such a wonderful man to actually talk about it. I used to say to him, "Are you never afraid of saying the wrong thing?" Well, he said, "No." He said, "Experience tells me that you have an editorial thing going on in your head which tells you before you say it whether it's the right thing to say or not." And he had a very difficult one. Sorry for interrupting. He had a very difficult time because he was there during the Troubles in Northern Ireland. He was an Irishman coming on when Ireland was blowing up half of Britain or whatever it was at that time. And he had to really come on as an Irishman. And he worked very hard at that, of being not denying his Irishness, but not at the same time getting caught up in the hatred of what some Irish people were doing. Very difficult, and a brilliant, brilliant man, and I've got to say, a loyal, wonderful friend.
Let's talk a little bit more about you. Father Darcy, because you've been a priest now for what,
56 years.
56 years, you said. Where did the call from the priesthood for the priesthood come? When did that come?
Well, I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the call has arrived yet, even after 56 years, because the world has changed so much.
Yeah.
The idea of being a priest 56 years ago and still being a priest today, if you're a 56-year-old priest today, you're dead. There's no way you can be the priesthood in the same way as you were 10 years ago, never mind 56 years ago. You have to relearn it, and re-experience the call each time. I'm not sure that I ever got a call. As a young guy, I was an altar server in the Catholic Church at that time. We said prayers at night. We weren't a very religious family. My mother was a lovely religious woman. She said prayers. The rest of us got by with as little prayers as we could. But we learned how to be good neighbours. We learned how to be a team player in a football team. We learned to look out for other people. And you learned that you weren't the only person in the world, that there were other people just as important as you. And my father was a big Gaelic footballer and ran football clubs at home. And that was the kind of element. But we did worship on Sundays and every other day as well. But one day I went down to confessions in a local monastery called the Grand Monastery, run by the Passionists. And to my great horror, shock and discomfort, when I was finished the confessions, I was about 15-year-old at this time, wanting to be a showman man. Because that's what I wanted to be, because I'd gone to school with people like Brian Call, Pat Chesters, Frankie McBride, all those when I was in Oma. And I wanted to be that, and if it wasn't that, I was going to be a bus driver like my father. So they were the only two things that I wanted to do. And it was at St. Michael's College. And the priest said to me at this stage, he said, "Did you ever think of becoming a priest?" And I said, "No." But he says, "I think you should. And if you'd like to come down to talk to me, could you come down to talk to me tomorrow outside of the confession about that?" I said, "No, I have a very important football match, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to play for the minor county team tomorrow, so I wanted to do that." But he said, "The following Saturday." So I knew I was getting caught here, and I couldn't tell the priest lies. So I said, "Yes." So he came down and he said, would you?" And I said, "Well, I've never thought about it, and we're not rich. And there's nobody a priest in our family, and I don't think I'm good enough to be a priest."
What was it that he saw in you then?
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I later became his superior in life and said his funeral mass. That man, a man named Father Angelo, and he was a director of students with me as well. And I don't know what he saw in me, but I went home and said to my father and mother that they wanted me to be a priest. My father and mother says, "Put that out of your head. You're too fond of football and music. You
They didn't
never
want
make
you
a
to
priest."
join the priesthood.
No, absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Because they thought I wasn't good enough to be a priest. Yeah, and they were right. I'm not. So
you're being very modest now.
No, I'm not. No, there's nobody. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. No, the priesthood is a call. I've no right to be or good enough to be a mediator between God and man. You can only do that if you get out of the way and let God do God's work. That's the only way you can do it. If you think you're God Almighty, you shouldn't be there in that job. I've met and been and through so many things. I was, at various stages. I was still chaplain to Gaelic teams. I've been chaplain to soccer teams in my life for 10 years. I've been, and obviously chaplain to the bandmen and entertainers for all of my lifetime. And that's where I learned how to be a priest.
Just being with people.
Being with people.
Being with them at their point of need.
And they Showband fellows in particular had a wisdom because their livelihood depended on being accepted by people. And they would always say a very simple phrase, "The punter is always right."
Yeah.
And if a lot more bishops had thought of that, we'd be in a better position.
Well, let's just stick with that. I know you've spoken out. You've been quite outspoken sometimes about the church. Has that come at a cost to you, Brian?
It has come at a cost, but that doesn't worry me. The bigger cost would if I had said nothing. I couldn't have lived with that. So you always have to speak truth to power.
Yeah.
That's the very basic thing of being a man of integrity or a person of integrity. You have got to speak truth to power. And that means that you have to live a life yourself that's worthy of that.
How do you keep your own faith alive?
Well, I keep it alive by keeping in touch with people. Yeah. I mean, it's a community of believers. It's not a one believer. You know, I don't have to tell people how to believe. I can't. I know I can tell people how to doubt so that you can become a little better believer. Doubt is not the enemy of faith. Certainty is. If I'm certain about all of this stuff in religion, as so many of my colleagues seem to be, then I don't need faith. All I need is my own certainty. But if I'm not sure what God is asking me to do, if I'm not sure where God is in the middle of awful things that I've been part of, suicides and road accidents and mediating for kidnappers and with fingers cut off and so forth, and you're in the middle of that, I know if I'm dependent on myself, I am lost. I always have to have a space open and a time open where I can listen to what God is asking me to do and where the Holy Spirit is leading me. And that's what I still do. I am still not certain of any answers. That's why I say I'm not sure if I ever answered the call to be a priest. Yeah. I'm still answering as best I can. And that's all I think God will ask of me.
Yeah. Wow, that's quite something. Let's move along to music. I mean, you talked about the show bands there and being, providing pastoral care to the show bands. Music plays a big part in your life, and you still broadcast regularly and talk about the music.
I do. Music has been great to me. I just think, see, I have this thing. I've developed a thing that the real prophets, modern prophets, are artists, writers, and musicians.
Who in particular are we talking about?
Well, it is that every age has its own. Yeah. I mean, in someone like Zach Bryan now would be a great writer at the present time, or Morgan Wallen would be a great writer at the present time. There are people. There's not as much good poetic writing as there used to be, like the Christophersons, the Cashes, the Simon and Garfunkel. Those were prophets. Springsteen is a prophet still. The Stones are prophets in a different way, but they are. They're about life. I mean, it's for them to have lived this long. Recently, I met Jerry Kelly one day at a Rolling Stones concert one night in Croke Park. And I said to Jerry, how do you think of that? He says, I'm flabbergasted by it. And I was too, because I went as a kind of a token to old men doing their last show. And that's what I thought. But I went and I saw Jagger running up and down. It's the fittest man I ever saw in Croke Park. Never mind the footballers. And he had this 50, 60 yard stage out, and he was running up and down it, and he was older than I am. And he was singing, and the band, and the whole band were playing, and they were fantastic.
I'm sure there's not too many priests go and buy themselves a ticket to go and see the Rolling Stones in Croke Park.
Well, I have to be honest, Peter Aiken gave me a ticket
you were
free.
A guest. But still,
that's
the
part
fact
of the chaplain of being a music bin.
So you like the Rolling Stones, Springsteen, and I know Dolly Parton.
Well, Dolly is lovely. You see, one of the things that I have about Dolly is that I knew Dolly was brilliant in 1972. That's the first time I met her, when I went to Nashville. Everybody was laughing at me and Dolly at that time, but because they thought she's a doll. She's not real at all. But if you ever met Dolly, you knew that she is real.
And she's a smart woman.
Smart woman. Yeah. She has something like 10,000 songs written. We only have heard about 500 of them. But she has just this ability to be able to, and she writes from a position of real. And I'll tell you a little story about Dolly. You know, I went over to interview her one time when she was doing a show in the Dominion Theatre, and the Sunday World sent me over because they used to laugh at me being a Dolly fan. So they sent a photographer, the late Tom McElroy, over with the two of us. So I did the interview with Dolly, and Tom asked her would she like to come out front stage for a photograph, because he was thinking front page Sunday World, Dolly Parton, Brian Darcy. You know, this was it. So I met her. So we stood up for this lovely photograph, and Dolly says, "Excuse me, Father, I think you should be looking at the camera.
Dolly Parton said that to you. What did you say?
I said, well, Dolly, it's not often I'm this close to get a look at anything. So so we had a good laugh about it anyway.
Oh,
but
brilliant.
that's how smart she is. You know,
Oh,
she just, you know, I'll get this for, I'll put him on the defensive by saying this to him, and she did.
And a lot of her songs are, I mean, she grew up in a gospel house, didn't she?
She grew up
lot
in a
of her
gospel
songs
house.
are
A lot of
gospel-based.
songs are about poverty too.
Yeah.
You know, My Tennessee Mountain Home, Coat of Many Colours. You know, all of those are, and I Will Always Love You.
She brings a gospel heart
She
to,
brings
to everything
but she has a
does.
real human heart to them. And she is. And she I mean, she has spent most of her fortune sending books for people to read, for underprivileged children to read, and she has spent most of her fortune on that. She reared all her own family because she has no family of her own. She couldn't have children. She couldn't have children herself, so she reared all her siblings' children for it. She came from extraordinarily poor background, and it wasn't. Well, she went there. She went to Nashville eventually an 18-year-old, and she decided she was going to be a star. She met a guy in a shop that day at the Laundry Mart. She met him. Carl Dean was his name, and she married him, and they spent their entire life together. On the first day in Nashville, she met him. So she's that great ability. She's insightful thing. She's the one, you know, who always says she left the Tennessee mountains and brought them with her. She makes a show of herself. She says it cost me $1 million to look cheap. You know, she always
right.
she has all
Great
these
quotes from
she has
Dolly
lovely
Parton.
quotes from that. But I mean, when she was under Porter Wagoner under his control for a long time, because he was the one who brought her to television. And he thought he controlled her, but she knew she was being controlled, and she decided that she was going to get out of that, and it cost her $2 million to get out of it, but she got out of it, and but she made about $40 million on the song she wrote. I will always love
Absolutely.
you. And the lovely thing,
and a great song it is.
but
too,
you know that Elvis wanted to record that.
Yeah.
And the major, he decided that Elvis, if recorded any song, he wanted a co-write credit on it.
Wow.
Dolly wouldn't give it to him.
Colonel Tom.
And she wouldn't. She just wouldn't give in. It's my song, it's my life. Elvis, I would sing it with him. He can record it if he wants to, but it's my song and my life.
Yeah, and we always associate it with her. What a woman. So, what an extraordinary life, extraordinarily busy man you are. Do you ever get time to relax, and what do you do? Like, do you still follow football?
Oh, I still follow football, yeah, I do. So all sorts of football. I was Barry McGuigan's chaplain as a boxer. I used to sort of say mass with Barry and go around with him. Still very friendly with Barry at that. I was Shamrock Rovers in the years of Jimmy McLaughlin in the middle 80s. I was their chaplain. They won 4 Cup League doubles in that time. And you know, I married most of the guys in the Rovers team at that stage. I still would be the chaplain to the Fermanagh team, still go around with him. No All Ireland's there. I don't have to worry about that for me and Fermanagh. But that's, the dads are great. You know, I learn a lot from them, and they get a bit of encouragement from me. I still do that all the time, I suppose. But I also have you need time to yourself. You know, you need time to listen to what God has asked you to do.
Right.
So I find I pray best in walks in the country.
In nature.
In nature. You know, the Celtic spirituality had a great phrase. They used to say that God's first scripture was creation. And you know, that was thousands of years ago. They were saying that. We are now beginning to relearn that if we destroy God's creation, we destroy ourselves.
Yeah.
God's first scripture, God's first word to us was his creation, and it's still the most powerful word of creation.
Yeah. We've only a couple of minutes left, and I feel like I could talk to you for another half an hour, but I was amazed, Brian, when we were talking earlier and you revealed to me that you're 80 years old.
Yeah.
I can't believe that. Do you feel 80?
No,
No.
I don't feel 80. No, thank God I don't. If I felt 80, I wouldn't have driven up here.
You wouldn't
to
be
talk
here.
to you.
What brings you joy these days, Darcy?
People bring me joy. You know, it's still people. People brings me joy. The goodness in people. There's a fierce amount of goodness in the world.
Yeah.
You see, bad news is bad news because it's rare. It wouldn't, if it was good news, if we ever come to the stage where good news makes the front page of a paper, we're banjaxed, because then doing good is so rare that it's newsworthy.
Yeah, it's unusual.
It's unusual. So you know, the front pages of papers are this news because it's unusual or different. But that's why good news stories are never on the front page of a paper, luckily. So there's so much good news around, so much good people. I mean, I'm in all sorts of organisations, helping the poor, everything. I don't keep money for myself. I try to give it to people like Chokra, Vincent de Paul, or anything that helps poor that I can't help. You know, I can't save the world, but I can save a person.
You can make a difference.
I can make
small
a difference. Yes.
Yeah.
You don't refrain from doing good because you can't save the world. You do good and see where the pool of goodness leads.
There's obviously no sign of you slowing down. Father Brian Darcy, what an extraordinary life, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Sure, as Lord Linda, it's been my pleasure.